So you want to fix something, right? Something that you've never fixed before. What do? You go to YouTube and you look it up and you find a good video on how to fix that thing that you're trying to fix. So I love that. It's so awesome. Back when I was growing up, I mean, you had to ask your dad if he had one, or a friend, or somebody close to you that might know how to fix something. And that was a lot harder. When I used to want to know something, my mom would say, look it up in the encyclopedia. And so I did. Man, those encyclopedias were old. There was a time when every tool that I owned fit in this toolbox. Not this one, just this one. And these aren't the tools anymore. This is just like an old toolbox that I don't even use anymore. Sometimes I forget to even look in here. See, I stole the 10 millimeter. It's such a prolific size when you're dealing with anything in the modern era. Anyways, so my point being, when I was a kid, I would take stuff apart to learn how to fix it. Usually it was a broken thing, and I would learn how to fix something. And so, I don't know, decades later, here we are. We're talking about fixing something because I have the fix addiction. I came from a long line of fixers. Probably plays into my genetic DNA that I would become a fixer myself and love it. So, since I've been taking things apart my whole life, I pretty much have saved everything I've taken apart because things are so handy. And so let's talk about these things that you take apart. Like this is from old 66 Chevelle parts and things, and now I have a bin that's just license lamps, right? One bin license lamps. We have a bin that's just relays and other assorted things. Like here's a sensor for a day-night to turn on a lamp, or maybe something else. Here we have some cool audio cords and some other storage. And it just goes on and on. I have got stuff like, here's just wires that have plug-ins on the end of them. And that's already shrunk wrapped. Okay, and this is just my electrical section right here. I mean, we've got more old wires over here. This is a handy one. It's almost Christmas time. A lot of this stuff didn't apply. I got rid of the old stuff, some of it. I actually have some LED stuff in here. Oh, you guys know about these tiny little fuses. It takes like a pick to get them out of their little clamps that hold them. Okay. Everything you've ever taken apart in your whole life, and then everything else, it needs to be organized. Because if you're going to fix things, you need to have your own hardware store. And it's a store when it's organized and you can go to the shelf and find it. So these are what I call my supplies. And I've got a little bit of everything, and then there's a lot of everything down here. Boxes and boxes of wire. And you have to go through these things regularly. So you know what you've got, where it's at, how you can utilize it in your next project. I mean, I even have some certain things, like I have a Volkswagen car. I mean, even the lamps are different. The pins, well, this one isn't a Volkswagen bulb. Maybe it is. Anyways, most of the pins on these bulbs, like this one, they're offset. You can't just stick a regular bulb in there. You'll be very frustrated. And then we can move on down to the actual hardware. Nuts, big and small. This is not a very organized tray here, but it is all bolts, and they're probably all standard. I've got like killer supplies. Everything that I've collected. And some of this stuff I might have got at estate sales. Like I know this bin for sure, estate sale, but I did organize it. I've got big hole, big washers, small hole, big washers, just big washers in general. I've got a stainless section for nuts and bolts. I've got stainless for smaller nuts and bolts. More nuts and bolts. I've even got stainless, like these whole, like about 12 bottom drawers. It's different stainless stuff. And this really comes in handy. Really comes in handy. I'm not even kidding. Unless you like to leave the house 5 times to go to the hardware store during a project, this is the way to go. I mean, we've got bins galore. When you start sorting stuff out and you think you have enough of something, it's time to start a tray or a bin to collect these things together. I mean, how many different kinds of thumbtacks or tacks in general do you have? And maybe you are organized and you're loving it. Maybe you're not organized and you need to get organized. You're like, hey, that's a good idea. Like I've picked up this stuff, probably all this, these bins and different things were mostly all secondhand. Got stuff that's, who knows what I'm going to use this skull for, but you just never know. I love having a wide array of things at my disposal, and then I can call the shots on what kind of hardware am I going to use. Is it going to be steel, brass, galvanized, stainless? So invariably you end up with coffee cans full of stuff like this. And you're digging through coffee cans like I used to do. I would pour out a coffee can, and I would dig through it, and then when I found what I needed, I would put everything back in the coffee can. Now, I don't know how many years ago that was, but I have migrated to a system of not only do I have the small stuff, but I've got the mass small stuff and big stuff and every kind of stuff. And I'm the kind of guy when I'm walking along and I find a piece of metal, I pick it up, put it in my pocket. I mean, I used to collect cans when I was a kid and I would recycle those, but I'm recycling steel and parts, metal in a whole new way. Anyways, when you get something like this was a Bigfoot camper that I modified and I took apart. And the cool thing about the Bigfoot, I don't want to get on a tangent here, but all the hardware fasteners inside had square bit, and these were like brass plated or some kind of cool screws for the interior panels. But so yeah, I have a square bit screw section right here. I'm thinking these are going to fit in there as long as they're round head or pan head. Don't want any flathead ones in there. I know I threw some flathead ones in there because those go in a different bin, which I'll find later. Anyways, the point being, everything has a place and your projects will go so much smoother, so much more fun, so much more creativity will come out of you in your fixing prowess when you've got things in their proper places. Oh, look at this. There's something about Torx screws that I just love. Growing up with Phillips screws, you had to push so hard just to drive a 3-inch Phillips screw. With the Torx, and that bit just holds on and does let the drill do the work. Anyways, hope you, I know no one is enjoying my show yet, but in the future, think about it. Let's fix something.